Theater. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the newest episode of the Theater Enthusiast podcast. As always, I am drinking out of my hot priest mug, which I did not show our guests. See, right?
Woo!
I have a thing, and it says Neil on the back. It's very fun. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hot priest candle is lit. Please welcome Joe Carroll. There it is. Can you hear
Woo!
it? All right, I'm putting it off
Applause.
because we have limited time. Do you live for the applause like Lady Gaga?
I suppose I do, right? Because I'm an actor. I get,
Yeah.
So Allison, you started a podcast.
I did. You have or had a podcast?
Yes. Yes, is the answer to
Is it
that.
on pause right now?
It's on pause. So yeah, I had slash have a podcast called Guys Who Like Musicals.
Hmm.
Um, that's on the Broadway Podcast Network. We just paused. Like we were doing it all through the pandemic. We did over 100 episodes
Oh
for
wow.
over the course of almost 2 years. Talked to a lot of really cool people. And during the pandemic, we kept it going. The pandemic's still happening, right? Like not I hate that people say that they're like, like, oh, the pandemic is it's not over, bro. It's not
No,
over. So
I work for a medical company and our like first thing we do every morning is COVID results. Still happening. I still
right.
wear my mask in
Yeah.
stores, going into a theater,
Yeah. Yeah.
like still
Yeah.
in.
So during the height, one of the peaks of the pandemic, my buddy and I, Dan Tracy, who's my co-host, he and I were just like we got kind of a little bummed out, frankly, about talking about how much we love this thing. We love theater and we love musical theater and we love Broadway,
Mhm.
and it was kind of nowhere in sight. Like it was
Yeah.
just it was kind of the dark days of the pandemic, and then as the reopening started, it was kind of so it was a little messy with the way that Broadway reopened, and
Yeah.
a lot of people still getting sick and shows shutting down and all this stuff. And so we just said, okay, we're just going to put this on pause. Because we were just a show, we just loved to talk about how great it is. Like we didn't want to get like, you know, we didn't want to, talk, sort of talk about it as it was, as things were just continuing to be a bummer. So we just put it on pause. So it will return triumphantly at some point. But I love that you started one. It is, and I also got to say this: we stopped doing it because it is a ton of work.
Yeah. Well, like I say, like I don't really edit my podcast. It's like I
Right.
record it and then I put it up and then I'm just like, you know what? Maybe someday somebody will reach out to me and be like, hey, like for free,
Yeah.
I will help you. And I'm like,
Yes.
wait,
Yeah. Well, people like the unedited thing. They like this is just a
I love
completely
that
candid
too.
conversation. Like you
Yeah.
don't know. I might say something completely insane, and then it'll be on the airwaves forever.
You know what? That's fine. That's why, because before we started, I told you how long other podcasts have gone for,
Yeah.
because we literally just get off track and just start talking about like The Office or just like some random things. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I love about the podcast is like we are going to talk about you and your life and career in theater, but it just veers off into other things as well. I do want to mention really quickly, I do always have show mugs for people.
Mm.
So, because you were in Romeo and Juliet, I jokingly call it Rome's and Jules. I have a Shakespeare's Love mug for you. And I was one of the lucky ones to see you in Boston in Moulin Rouge. So I have a
Wow.
Moulin Rouge mug, although this is the Broadway production, but I do have a Boston Moulin Rouge tote bag somewhere in my apartment.
Amazing. Amazing. I want a Boston Moulin Rouge tote bag.
I'm sure you know the people. So it's
I
really
have
dirty though. I carried it around with my old job. Like all my shit was in there, and now it's just
nice.
like in a drawer somewhere.
Nice. When I was moving, I mentioned you just before we jumped on that my wife and I just moved, and that's always a fun thing to discover old old opening night cards,
Yeah.
old tchotchkes and things. And I found Aaron Tveit gave us all wine glasses that
Yeah.
said that like the opening night and the like name of the show for Boston. And then I found this really cool picture that oh gosh, I think it was Matt Murphy who did the photos, but I don't if
Yeah.
whoever did the photos for Boston.
Mhm.
There was this very cool picture of us in the lobby of the Emerson Colonial theater like right after the renovation was complete and all that. It
Yeah.
was, and I was like, oh, like kind of down memory lane a little bit with those. But I'm obsessed that you just brought up Romeo and Juliet because that's one of those credits of mine that people that just kind of slips in there in the middle that people don't even
I
really
did my
realize.
research. I did a deep dive. I
Into
always read,
Playbill Vault and like a
no,
little Instagram
everything.
scroll and
I
Wikipedia and off of your
Yeah, I always tell the story because I find it so funny. So I had Andrew Cobra on my podcast,
I
and
love
I
him.
asked him, "Who doesn't?"
I
Seriously.
love him. He is we I'd love to talk about him eventually. We don't have to talk about it right now because we're getting distracted, but he and I have a real a hobby in common. We are our soulmates in a way.
Nice.
Andrew Cooper and I. So
Maybe I'll get a podcast of just like you and him, and then two can just talk, and I'll just sit there watching.
hmm
It'll be
what
really
we
great.
talk about it, it's incredibly boring to a lot of people, but we love it. We love airline points travel. So points, credit cards, and credit card miles, and airline travel and that stuff. We are, pardon me, crazy about it.
Mhm.
So, we text about it on a weekly basis.
I
That's
think
our thing.
I think you just created your new podcast, Airline Points with Cobra and Carol.
Points with Cobra and Carol. That's what we need to
Yeah,
do.
fun.
Yes, yes.
Well, he did the reading series did a cabaret in February, and my intro was he's very handsome because that's what he wanted. And then talked about the credit card points, and then
hmm
he came on stage and he sang.
Yeah, I
Like,
love it.
what else can you talk about that? But yeah, no, like I said, I did a deep dive, and with Kober, I was asking him, and he's like, "Whoa, you did your research." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to research a person I have come on onto my podcast."
That's very nice.
Yeah,
We did not research some people that came onto our podcast
that's fine. I have
because
people.
like they were
Yeah.
like friends or something. Not we did a lot of our homework. I promise we did our homework, but like we'd have people on and it would be like be a friend,
Mhm.
and it'd be a friend
Yeah.
and we just start shooting the shit with Casey Levy or something, and then it was like, oh wait a minute, hold on, let's
Mhm.
we should know more of your credits
Yeah.
because you
I mean,
have
I've
a
had
lot of
people
them.
on where I'm like, wait, oh wait, no, you did that. And then I don't remember, but like I researched them and it just like left my brain.
Totally.
But let's talk about you. So where are you from?
I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. My family moved around a lot when I was a kid. But basically, I was born in Dayton, Ohio.
Mhm.
Moved around a bit. Lived in Chicago, Geneva, Illinois, outside of Chicago for 10 years, and then we moved to Michigan right before high school. And so then I did high school and college in Michigan, and my folks are still in Michigan.
Nice. Where so Mitten.
Yeah. So the
I like
mitten.
to think School of no, not I was gonna say School of Rock, Rock of Ages for
Mhm.
this because you're like Detroit,
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah, and then they did. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, because also visual aids are great for a podcast because everybody can see what we're
Yeah.
doing. But if
We're
you
holding up
hold
a
up,
hand, you guys.
you either hold up your right hand with
Mhm.
the thumb on the left side, or you hold up the back of your left hand with
Yeah,
the
see,
thumb
I
on the
didn't
left
do
side.
that.
Either way, and so Grand Rapids is close to like the base of your ring finger, kind of like in the middle of your hand,
That's why you're a good teacher because you
I
just
guess.
described it perfectly for my five listeners out there.
Yeah,
I know there's seven.
we joked about that with ours too. It was theater podcast. It's like five theater nerds out there just like us, and then like my mother. Thanks, mom. Thanks for
Yeah.
listening.
Oh, and I was talking to my mom today, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm recording my podcast." She's like, "Make sure you don't ask this." I'm like, "I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Have
Yep.
you listened to my podcast?" She goes, "Maybe once or twice." I'm like, "Then
Mm-hmm.
why are you telling me what to talk to about with people?"
My mom did it constantly. She was always like, listen, she would give us notes. She was like our
Yeah.
executive producer, truly. Like after every episode, we'd get like texts, Dan and I, but my mom would say
Yeah.
stuff like, I forget what it was, but she would always, she's like, hey, you guys are really finding your voice and this
Mhm.
is really working, but like this part, like this didn't work.
Yeah. No, I say that because she doesn't listen to the podcast and
Oh,
she's
got it.
giving me notes.
Got it. Got it. So come on,
Yeah.
mom, listen to the podcast.
Yeah, come on. She doesn't have time. It's fine. My best
Yeah.
friend doesn't even listen to it, and I call her out on it all the time.
Yeah. That's great. And
Lord.
then one day she'll start listening to it and,
Mhm.
all of these the shout outs will be there.
She'd be like, "Oh, why did you do that?" So I feel like half of Broadway went to University of Michigan.
Yeah, there's a bit of us. There's a
Mhm.
handful.
Which isn't a
And
bad thing. They produce a lot of great people.
You know what? It's the musical, yeah, the musical theater department and the acting department at Michigan are really good. I had a great time there. I blame, people say that a lot, that there's a lot of Michigan folks on Broadway, and you can blame whoever you want to blame. I blame like Celia Keenan Bolger, Gavin Creel, people from the sort of like late 90s and 2000s who
Hmm.
came through even before them to kind of make it what it was. And so like, I was in high school watching YouTube videos of Jake Wilson and
Hmm.
uh, you know, um Andrew Keenan Bolger and Benj Pasek and stuff like that, saying like, oh, like I think I want to go to school there. And yeah, it was great. It was an incredible time. And I was 2 hours from my family, which was a bonus. That there was just a good musical theater program right down the road, which was just such a blessing. So yeah. So that was college.
Yeah. Well, before we like go further, um, did you always want to do theater or kind of what led you to wanting to do that as a career and then go to college for
Yeah. I did my first musical when I was in the third grade.
it? Hmm.
My mother was actually, I always get the story wrong of exactly how she got involved with it, but there was a community theater at my elementary school, sort of middle school,
Hmm.
part of the community. And she was volunteering, or she was asked to volunteer. And they needed adults to sing in the NYC, scene. It'd be like, the maids and
I'm
the
assuming this was
mansion.
Annie.
Annie. Oh my gosh, did I not say that?
No, it's fine.
So yeah, so I
You
just jumped
can
the
tell
story.
who a theater nerd is based on how you just described the scene.
Okay.
NYC scene. Oh, so Annie.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So
Mhm.
Annie, third grade, Annie. And so my mom agrees to be in the ensemble. She's got a great singing voice. And so she is in the ensemble in of Annie, and she has to bring me to rehearsal, instead of getting a babysitter. So I just sat there like enraptured with this play when I was in the third grade. I just sit there like couldn't take my eyes off it. And then they said, hey, the director said, hey, do you want to be a part of this? We need boys, and so I was a newsboy in the NYC scene in Annie, and it just became a thing that I did every year. Was I just I would play some sports, and my folks had this motto when we were growing up that my mom was like, I don't care what you do, but you are not coming home at 3 o'clock and bugging me.
Yeah.
Like you have to be involved in sports and arts and extracurriculars, and you have to go do stuff.
Mhm.
You're not going to be like looking at me at 3 o'clock like going and getting into trouble. So every season I kind of had to pick something, some extracurricular, and so I was playing sports and doing theater, and then it just became like I found a real community in it throughout middle school, and just did a show every year. And then you get to high school and you sort of have to really pick like, okay, what are you going to do with your time? And uh so I said, okay, well, I'll do a couple of sports, and then I'll do the spring musical. And I auditioned for that. It was Hello Dolly, which is still one of my favorite shows. And in that cast was a guy named Johnny Stellard, and Johnny is still very much in the business. He went to Elon for musical theater. He did Evita on Broadway, a whole bunch of stuff, and he was auditioning for. He was a junior, and he was about to go audition for colleges for musical theater. And I was like, that's a thing you can do. You can. What do you mean? You can major in musical theater. You can major in acting. He's like, oh yeah, and then through him, I met more people who also were, who had either gone through musical theater auditions or, college auditions, or were already majoring in musical theater in college. And then I realized it could be a career.
Mm.
And then slowly over the course of high school, I was like, oh, I think I'm pretty good at this. And, I had a passion for it. And then, I did a summer program before my senior year of high school at U of M at Michigan, and was completely hooked.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I regret that decision every single day of my life. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened, sort of slowly but surely. But since I was really little, I've been doing it a long time.
And where did that, and I say because I told you I did a deep dive. So there's a photo of you as the prince in Swan Lake. Now, where did that come
Yes.
about for the hashtag boys also dance?
Yes, yes. So that was oh gosh, Katie Wilson's gonna kill me. The girl who's in that photo with me, my friend Katie, that wasn't Swan Lake. It was, I think it was Cinderella.
Looked like a tutu. So,
Yeah, I was
okay.
in what, or shoot, what was that? I danced with the ballet company in high school. And so we did a number of ballets, Midsummer Night's Dream. I think it was Cinderella, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, we I did a couple of ballets in high school. This was like it was called Care Ballet, West Michigan. Great, they're still around, still kicking, literally. And I realized the choreographer of Hello Dolly after my freshman year of high school was like, "Yo, if you want to do musical theater, you got to learn how to dance." I was like, okay. And so I took my first dance class was a tap class with a bunch of 9 year olds, and I was 16. And they just tap circles around me. Never been more sort of humbled in my life than when
Mhm.
you take a dance class with a bunch of children and they're better than you. And then I did a dance intensive that summer and walked out literally in the middle of the warm up, like the first jazz class. I was just like, I'll stand in the back and try to do the best I can. And was so, and I was an athlete my whole life. I was a hockey player. And so I was in okay shape, but I could not hang with these dancers. And so, in the middle of the warm up of the first jazz class of the first day of a week long dance intensive, I walked out and just was like, I can't do this. And, recircle, circle it back up and ended up going back to the classes and danced all through high school. But yeah, I loved ballet. I still love ballet. I think it's just unbelievable. I think that they're actual superheroes.
Yeah.
So I'd like, in high school, I'd sit around watching, videos of Barishnikov being like, how in God's name, you know,
Mhm.
do people do this with their
Yeah.
bodies?
Were
Yeah.
you also obsessed with Center Stage, the movie? Like
Completely.
everyone
I
else
could,
is?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, the entire end of that movie is like an unbelievable ballet. Um, I used to know the names of all of those dancers. Isn't Zoe Saldana in that movie?
Yes.
Yes. So
Mhm.
Zoe Saldana, and then the two
Ethan
guys were both,
Stiefel,
yeah,
some guy's name. It's in my
Seth
head, but I
something. It's
Seth
Seth.
I was gonna
It's
say
not
Seth
Seth Rudetsky.
Rudetsky.
Yeah, it's not Seth Rudetsky.
Imagine if it was Seth Rudetsky, that would just be like whole other.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's Seth something,
Yeah.
and then the girl. I can't think of their names, but I know their names. If that
Yeah.
makes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like the whole sequence where the two guys are like, showing off about like the way that they're going to end the variation and,
Yeah.
double tours and all of these things. And then, yeah, it's just unbelievable. The movie's so great and so
And
terrible at the same time.
they were principals in American Ballet Theater, and now they actually no. The guy who played Charlie works for American Ballet Theater, and Ethan Stiefel is like an artistic director somewhere of some ballet. And
Yeah.
his wife is still in ABT.
And why is that not a movie? Or I mean, a movie, a
Stage
musical.
show?
Yeah, stage show. Why have they not turned that
I don't know.
into
I'm sure
a
at
Broadway show?
some point they will. I feel like they're concentrating on like 80s movies coming to Broadway.
Yeah.
Back to the
Yeah.
Future is happening and the Karate
Right.
Kid. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. So we just need to like wait 10 years. Is that what you're saying? And then there'll be a center
maybe.
stage
I told
Broadway
my
show.
old roommate, yeah, my old roommate, she works for like a Broadway producing company, and I said, you have to get Troop Beverly Hills to be a musical. It has something for people like me, for the gays. They have a song about cookies. You don't need anything else.
That's
That's
great.
all I have.
That's
And that's
so
all you
good.
need. So how did RADA,
Yeah.
Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, come into play in your career?
Yeah, that was it was a semester abroad in college. Still like the best semester, best 6 months of my life. That place is very special. It was this program. Michigan didn't have this is like a tangent, but I just think that study abroad is so important if you can do it. If if you have the means, if your, school has access to that, it's just super duper mind blowing. And Michigan's musical theater program and acting program didn't have any study abroad kind of sister school or whatever, but there were students in the past that had said, hey, I want to study abroad, and they found this program through NYU, and NYU partners with RADA. And then it's basically like a Shakespeare intensive
Yeah.
for the semester, sort of a lot of the greatest hits of Rada education movement, stage combat, voice, speech, scenes, all of that stuff. And it was incredible. It was incredible. I still, and even yesterday, I was riding my bike through Harlem and I ran into one of my classmates from Rada, who is a
Wow.
NYU. Um, and we were the same year at NYU, and he was just walking down the street in Harlem, and like I'm still incredibly close with a lot of people from that semester because it was just, I always loved musical theater and still obviously do, but this was just a semester of just acting, of
Yeah.
just text, of just the classics. And
Mhm.
we saw theater like every night. You could get $10, £10 tickets to see most of the things on the West End or at the National Theater. So we would go
Yeah.
like, and Fringe and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We saw so much great theater that semester, and that was 2010, which is like I can't believe I
It
still feel
makes
like it.
me throw up a little bit inside because I
Mhm.
like had already graduated college when you said that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
just like, oh, he's younger. But
Yeah,
it's
I
fine.
got you. Well, I'm sorry about that because I look at it and I'm like, still that was 12 years ago, and I still think it was like, 4-ish,
Yeah,
It's
I just saw a show the other night and I have these people coming onto my podcast actually, and it's called McBitches and it takes place over a night and they had just cast a college production of the Scottish play. And it like
amazing.
just like brought me back to when I was in college and like the different archetypes that they had in the show. Not
Yeah,
really like my experience personally dealing with like what was happening, but just the insecurities that these girls had about getting cast in a show. I definitely related to. And I was like, "Oh,
amazing.
college. I
Amazing.
remember."
It's
Yeah.
called McBitches. Is
Mhm.
it out now?
Yeah, it's at the Kane Theater.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I actually really enjoyed it and it was very funny. I don't
That's
want to give
great.
too much away because I do have some people coming onto the podcast.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
I just want to see it. That sounds great.
Oh no, please do. I really enjoyed it. It's like 90 minutes, Kane Theater, 36th Street. Really
Love
nice
it.
set. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Cool.
Check it
Dig
out.
that.
Yeah. So you graduate college, then what happens?
Graduated college and then what happened after that? Well, I guess like the greatest hits.
Mhm.
Uh so I went and I did a summer stock season, or I did one show at a small theater in Michigan called Mason Street Warehouse that is a wonderful professional regional theater. I did my first show there in college, and worked with like Tim Shu, who was Jonathan Shu, and Tim was in one of the longest running Valjeans in history, did Guys and Dolls, all these things. And I was 18, I got to meet him and work with him, which was incredible. And then I went back there, and did Avenue Q, got my equity card, and I moved to New York, with my equity card in August. And then in August of of that year of 2012, I started auditioning for Once and made my Broadway debut in Once, in September ish. Was it September? Yeah, September of early September of 2012. So
Mhm.
Once had won the Tony in that year, and they were adding some additional coverage. They kind of realized that they were going to be
I
around for a second. So
I am very well versed in Once. One of
sorry.
my favorite it's you didn't know.
Yeah.
So it has a very special place in my heart, that show.
Yeah, did you see it
Yes.
like on Broadway, like off Broadway too, or both, or whatever?
I literally tell this story like every single podcast about it.
I love it because it's my favorite show that I just so happen to be able to be a part
Yeah.
of. So I'm
I saw it total of 10 times altogether, like including off Broadway. So when I
wow.
first saw it, I love Steve Kazee. I've been a fan of his since he was in Spamalot, and so I got like a flyer in the mail. I'm like, let me just get a ticket for this because if I don't, I will never see the show. Saw it on a matinee, and I have never done this, and I haven't done it since. At intermission, I bought myself a ticket to see the show again.
Oh my God, I love that.
And then the second time I saw it off Broadway, nobody applauded throughout the show because they were just like so engrossed in what was
Hmm.
happening.
Yep.
And then I was there the first night of previews on Broadway, where I
Wow.
don't know if you heard the story about like the encore. Okay. So they come out, they do the curtain call, they come out again, they do the encore curtain call, lights go up. Nobody has left the theater. The audience is still going crazy. They like wouldn't
Mm.
leave, and they had to make the actors come out again and do another curtain call
Oh
because
my
the audience
God.
wouldn't leave. It was like probably one of the most like magical nights in the theater I've ever had.
Holy cow. I
Yeah,
love that so, so much. I mean, that still is, yeah, it's like the greatest, my greatest theatrical memories.
yeah.
I remember my wife remember, so I met my wife in college, and she remembers. I don't really remember this, but
If you
but
want to
but
know the story of their first date, you can find it on YouTube.
it is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
So uh she remembers when we were in college, me showing her that movie. She'd never seen the movie before,
Mhm.
and me saying to her, I think this would make a great musical.
Yeah.
I don't remember saying that. She remembers saying that. So fast forward to senior year or junior year. There's rumorings that it's happening, that they're going to do it at ART, and then they're doing it off Broadway. And I have always been an instrumentalist. I played started playing drums when I was really really little. I had an uncle, have an uncle who's a drummer. And that was just a huge part of my life growing up, playing in the middle school band and playing in bands in high school.
Mhm.
Picked up a guitar in middle school, always took piano lessons. And it was just kind of something that, again, like I just kind of like everything and all sorts of things. And so I just, it was just part of my life. Got to college, and really, John Doyle really changed the game as far as the actor musician
Mhm.
story was concerned. That revival of Company and Sweeney and everything else. So that was starting to become really really cool and really something, and I kept playing instruments, and I played in the pit of Rent my freshman year of college, and played in bands. And then okay, Once is happening, and I remember looking, so it comes to Broadway, and I had a friend, classmate, whose father was a producer on the show. And I said to her, like, it had already turned out to be one of the biggest hits of the season. And I said, I was going to New York for an audition my senior year. I think they were still in previews, or maybe they had just opened. And
Mhm.
and she hooked me up with a ticket, and I wept like a baby. I saw myself in all of those people, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is what I'm meant to do and what I'm meant to be doing.
Mhm.
And at intermission, I looked in the program. So this is like March or April of 2012, and I saw in the program that there was one guy. His name is Ben Hope, and he is still my dear friend. That he covered four people, including covered Guy, and he covered a couple of the other instrumentalists. And I said, if I'm going to skip the line, if I'm going to be in a Broadway show way before I've ever put in my dues,
Mhm.
I'm going to play this guy's part, um, because I play all of these instruments except for like the banjo.
Mhm.
And so I started teaching myself the music, just with the cast album, with any of Glenn Hansard's music that I could find.
Mhm.
And it just so happened that fall they were looking for standbys for Kristen and Steve. So I
Mhm.
started auditioning for Steve's standby, and went through the whole audition process and got down to the end, and they said to me, you're too young to be Steve's standby. It's looking like we're going to promote one of the understudies.
Mhm.
Do you really play all of these instruments that are on your resume?
Mhm.
And I said, yeah, I do. And they were like, do you play the banjo? And I lied, and I said yes. And I said yes, I play the banjo. I've never picked up a banjo in my life. And I was like, if I need to, I'll figure it out. I'll lock
Yeah.
myself in a room for a couple days and figure it out. And so then I started auditioning for that swing track, for the understudy. It was like covering four characters. They promoted Ben Hope. Ben Hope became the standby.
Mhm.
He went into the show with Laura Dreyfus, who's still a good friend of mine,
Mhm.
from Politician and Glee fame, and Dear Evan Hansen. They were the standbys, and then I came in and I took over Ben's job as the understudy. And I got a call as I was going through security at Newark Airport. I got a text message, not even a phone call, text message from the casting director as I'm going. I had to put my phone through the belt, and the text came in right as I was walking through security. Hey, you're going to be the new understudy in one. You're going to make your Broadway debut, as the
Or like
understudy in
I'm
one.
crying for you. I'm sorry. I just like I can have an entire podcast just talking about the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we could just see her talking about it too. I mean, it was my favorite. It was the most unbelievable experience. Then I made my debut in a track that I was not really, I never had to put in for it. It was the bass
Did
player, Andre.
mhm.
Um, they
Did
told
you
me,
go on
yes.
ever? Oh, as
Yeah.
Andre for the first time?
Yeah, that was Andre for the first time. That was what I did. And then I did that one the most. I did that track the most. And then I did Svetch, the drummer,
Mm-hmm.
and the
So great.
MC
Mm-hmm.
and Eamon. And it was very cool because my last show, um, I had put in my notice to go do Romeo and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like one of these things on Broadway that, like, whoever, I don't really care if if I get in trouble for it, but basically I asked the guy who was playing Eamon at the time. I said, "Hey, Sunday's my last show. Do you mind calling out so that I can go on in your track for the last show?"
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Yeah, sure." So he took the day off, and I went on. And Eamon, you remember, so Eamon has all of the lines about leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Eamon says, like, you made great music today, like,
Yeah.
best be going, all this, the fair play, all of this stuff that he says is all about leaving. And I just was like, I was a mess. He stands front and center and sings the acapella gold.
Yeah.
Um, and it was an incredible experience. It was an incredible show. We just had a reunion a couple of weeks ago that Lucas Papilius put together, and we
Mhm.
sat in the back room of an Irish bar on 45th Street and
Yeah.
made music. And it's still this,
Lucas,
like,
aka the guy from School of Rock. Never
yeah,
forget.
I never forget that he's the guy from School of Rock. But yeah, it was still like the best experience of my whole life. And there's a lot of these stories on our podcast too. But my mother told me as I was going into my first day of rehearsal, she was like, try to remember one thing, because if you try to remember everything, you're going to remember nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember on my first day, to get to the Jacobs Theater, you walk through this alley that shares with the Golden Theater, Jacobs Theater, and the Majestic Theater. And
Mm-hmm.
so the Majestic is on your right, and Phantom is happening there. I forget what was playing at the Golden at the time, but it was a play. I think it was a play with James Earl Jones. And then,
The Chin Game.
yeah, possibly, yes. And then the Jacobs, and there was a sign that was clearly from, like, the dawn of electricity, that
Mm-hmm.
is hanging in that alley, that says, that lights up after 7 o'clock, that says the curtain is up. And it's just, I just remember walking through a stage door and seeing that sign in this alley surrounded by garbage and being like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah.
Julie Andrews sat on these stairs
Yeah.
that I'm walking past to, like, go into this theater, Anyway,
Yeah.
so it was pretty cool.
I remember I saw one time, and the person I saw with, she and I were all the way right orchestra. And
Hmm.
so because of that alleyway, we heard a very muffled masquerade of
Absolutely.
Phantom. So we
Yep.
had two shows for the price of one that night.
Uh-huh. You can kind of hear what's going on
The
at Phantom.
I'm
Right.
like,
So something very quiet is happening during once, and you hear,
yeah.
like, Angel of
And it's
Music
like,
happening. Yeah.
no, we only heard Masquerade though, so it kind
I
of worked
love it.
out that it wasn't like the entirety of Phantom. But no, I used to do merch at shows, so
Cool.
I know that alleyway fairly well because of the Golden Theater.
Yeah.
Not to like whatever. I also
Yeah.
like one night of merch at Bandstand and BD.
Oh,
Yeah, which we'll get to. So
I
I
love it.
we'll talk about Romeo and Juliet because I was kind of like a thing for the moment because like Orlando Bloom was going to be in it and
Right.
Lola Rashad and all of that.
And no one came to see it.
I did. I was there. I don't remember you, but I do remember Orlando Bloom coming on stage in a motorcycle,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and it was
Yep.
like a very bare stage with fire at some point.
Lots of fire. Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. Yeah.
man, was he
Just,
trying to make that show happen? God bless
yeah,
him.
I like, it's one of those crazy moments in my life, because, like, it's just like it's how the entertainment industry works in general, right? Like, I'm 23. I don't really know anything, but I'm not going to do this play with arguably one of the biggest movie stars in the world.
Mhm.
And that experience, while unbelievable to be able to do Shakespeare on Broadway, like, it just, like I said, I was joking about it, but, like, people didn't come.
Yeah.
And so, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, that all of these great people were doing it, and
Mhm.
it just didn't catch, and we closed. Um, it's sad because I was his understudy. I was Orlando's understudy, and I had dates to perform the role the week after we closed. So what they decided to do, because we weren't selling super well, was like they he was going to go do press for the latest Lord of the Rings movie, and I was going to do 8 shows, and they just closed the show that week,
Yeah.
instead of have to go through the whole thing. So that really stunk that I never got to perform it. But it was still like, I mean, I love Shakespeare, and
Listen, you
I
don't have to pay royalties for Shakespeare. Just go into the park and do your own production of Romeo and Juliet. Like, grab your wife, have her
just
play Juliet,
and just
and
run
call it a
around,
day.
and this is good. This is a good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah, just do it myself.
Yeah. Just
Um,
like go to Belvedere Castle and just like
yeah.
do a scene from Romeo and Juliet and, like have at it.
Exactly. And then I tell people this all the time. I mean, it's kind of a broken record, but I got that from an open call. I went to an open call audition, for people who don't know, you can go to basically open calls for Broadway shows. Anybody who is a member of the union can go and audition. I could not get an appointment for the show from my agent. I said, "Hey, I want to get seen for this Romeo and Juliet with Orlando Bloom." And a lot of times, if you are still happens, if you're a young actor and you don't have an MFA from Juilliard or Yale, it
Mhm.
is sometimes hard to break into classical theater. They want to see these people who from these storied programs. And I got a musical theater degree, and I know that that's one of the reasons why I couldn't get seen for it. And I said, well, fuck it, I'm going to go to this open call, and went anyway. And was called back from that open call, and ended up auditioning a couple times, and got yeah. And I just, it was fun because I had seen a really great production of Romeo and Juliet in London when I was studying abroad,
Mhm.
and I just stole all of the choices that that guy made
It's
in London. I just stole
yeah.
all of it because I remember watching the show, and everybody knows Romeo and Juliet, the famous balcony scene. That was the audition side for Romeo, and I walked into the open call, and you could pick the scene that you wanted to read.
Mhm.
And I was like, and I was like, oh, I can maybe be Benvolio. I can maybe like be his buddy, like,
Mhm.
some buddy of some movie star. But you know what? If I'm not going to get a call back, if I'm not going to hear anything from these people ever again, I'm just going to go do what I want for fun. Like, this is
Yeah.
just another audition. I'm just going to go like have some fun. How many times in your life do you get to actually do the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet? So I'm just going to go do this and, see what happens. Well, in this production that happened in London, um, the line, "What light through yonder window breaks," does not mean, oh, look at this beautiful girl up in the window. It means, oh, fuck, my enemy just turned on the lights and I'm about to get murdered because I am in the wrong place. I am in enemy territory and they just turned the lights on. So in this production, this guy says that, and he ran off the stage and jumped into the audience and hid behind somebody in the front row. And like, it
Wow.
was it was what light through the yonder window breaks, and he runs off the stage and hides. And I was like, oh my god, it blew my mind of like what we think, classical text, and what we think something means and what it actually means. And so I just did that. I just stole that guy's choice. And I remember the casting director being like, yeah, you really had an interesting take on that scene. I was like, oh yeah, because I just stole it from this other guy. This
Did you
guy.
tell them that, or you were just like, "Thank you"?
I didn't tell him. I know I didn't tell him that. I tell everybody that subsequently because I was like 23. I wanted to seem like I knew what
Well,
I was
now
doing.
they
But
know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
just steal from other artists, and it's called being inspired, or the line between plagiarism and being inspired is razor
Yeah.
thin sometimes.
So we are like we have a little bit of time left. So it's really funny that you bring up the whole musical theater degree thing because in the past, with like working with musical theater actors on those things, the readings and everything that we've done in the past,
Yeah,
what is your take on that? Because you're also now starting to do a lot of television work.
yeah.
Um, do you find it harder? I mean, probably not for TV work, but when it comes to getting to do plays, what's your take on that? Because they see musical theater. Do you find it harder to get into a play because of it?
Um, I do think it's a bit of an uphill battle, to be
Mm.
honest. Yeah. But once you prove yourself, once you actually like go in those rooms and
Yeah,
show them that you are capable,
yeah,
then you're in. It's just,
yeah,
I think just like anything, it's harder to sometimes get in the door,
yeah,
and I think that's an equity, a true meaning of equity thing across the board. I think just like we shouldn't hold these old school institutions on such a high pedestal because you're missing out on people who are great
Yeah.
otherwise, musical theater people or just people who didn't have the means to go to Yale.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
Mhm.
shouldn't have to, that shouldn't be the barrier to entry, but unfortunately it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And people will say that about musical theater as far as Michigan is concerned. People might look at me and be like, "Oh yeah, you went to Michigan, got a BFA in musical theater." Like, they might think the same thing, but um, yeah, yeah, I do think it's harder. But once you get in those rooms, casting directors want to trust you. They want you to be good.
Yeah.
So you just sometimes you have to deliver, and then you're in.
Yeah. So let's, because we do again have limited time and I have other things to ask, let's talk really quickly about Bandstand because that kind of blew up in a good way,
Yeah.
you know? So, and you talked about being a drummer, so you were the drummer in the band. So talk about the audition process and everything for that. That
Yeah, that was it
right.
was cool. Yeah, I that was Tara Rubin, like I said, casting directors want you to succeed. Like, God bless Tara Rubin. Just I got an offer to do a reading of Bandstand back in 2014. And pardon me, it was just a reading, and no one was playing music, no one was playing instruments. Slightly different cast at the time. I mean, it was just people to read these roles, but I happened to play the drums, which
Mhm.
she knew, I'm pretty sure, because I had auditioned for the one of the productions of the Black Suits, Joe Iconis's show.
Mhm.
And so I sent them a video of me playing the drums, so I'm pretty sure that that's how they knew that, or once maybe, I don't know. But I got asked to do the reading and then just kept doing readings. And then flash forward to, what year was that now? 2016? We did 16. Yeah, fall of 16 we did it at Paper Mill, and I had to totally audition as everybody did for the show. Went in and read, and then we did a band audition, a band call where everybody who was auditioning came into one room, and we had the two charts. We had Ain't Too Proud and one other one, I forget what it was, but we played in different configurations. So it was me and one other drummer, and he was a better drummer than I was, for sure. And we just we'd play with different horn players, different combinations of people, and some guys who were clearly like professional musicians who they were seeing if they could read, and then I think some actors, a lot of actors who could also play a bit. And then we did it at Paper Mill, and we waited. We didn't know if we were going to Broadway until, um, gosh, I feel like I'm getting my dates wrong. I feel like I'm getting my dates wrong because that might have been 15. Anyway, whatever. We didn't go to Broadway for a year, basically,
Mhm.
and over a year, and yeah, but it was crazy. And then just the response that people have had to it, really subsequently, like it's kind of blown up, like you know. The cast album, bootlegs, we did film it for, it was in movie theaters. We release it kind of like every year on Veterans Day, Memorial Day, stuff like that. It'll come back out to movie theaters, which is cool. But again, another one that was like one of the greatest, coolest experiences of all time. And just the producers did everything they could to keep it open, but it just, it got to, the fall, it got to September of that year, and they were like, hey, we got to close. And we kind of saw it coming because the
Yeah.
grosses weren't as great as they needed to be, but it was incredible. And I'm so glad that it lives on, that people keep singing the songs. Like a lot of women sing
Yeah.
Love Will Come and Find Me Again, and a lot of duets from, anyway, it was a really special experience.
Yeah. So how did Moulin Rouge Boston happen? Was that
um
another audition you went on?
Yeah, kind of another audition. I mean, like so many people, one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember seeing it in the theaters with my mom. We'd go to movies all the time together growing up. That was kind of our thing.
Mhm.
And so we saw it that year, whatever, 2000, 2001, and I just loved it. I would listen to the cast album all the time. And then saw they were doing it in
Mhm.
Boston. Tried to get an audition, couldn't get an audition. Said to my agent, like, for to play Christian, and said to my agent, like, can I just tape? Please just let me tape. So I made a self tape, and then got a call like, hey, they want to see you in person. I was like, yes, they actually watched the tape, and they liked it. And I went back in for a final sort of a true, work session, producer session,
Mhm.
before Boston. And then Timbers called me personally and said, hey, we're going a different direction with the role, but if there's any way you'd understudy, we'd love to have you. And I was like, oh my God, like, Alex Timbers is called. Like, how do you not say yes
Yeah.
to that? And so I did. And so I did the lab down on the Lower East Side, and then we went to Boston the following summer, and it was made some of my dearest friends. I still keep in touch with those people all the time.
Mhm.
Max Clayton turned into my brother, and we just one of my absolute best friends, and um, the show has been so successful. It's been amazing, and then when it came to Broadway, um, I just made a career gamble to say, hey, I don't want to understudy right now. I want to play parts, and I want to, have a little bit more responsibility. So, you know, I'm not going to do my track, because also I can't dance like, you know, Max or Kyle or Olu or any of these people who are in the show. Like I couldn't dance, so I was standing off on the side, like being like sort of
Yeah.
vocal support basically, and then understudying the couple of principals, and which is it was an incredible experience. But I just said, hey, I'm gonna take a gamble on myself, and then started auditioning for Frozen
Mhm.
basically right after that.
And then
Um,
Frozen
and
happened.
then Frozen happened. So
Yeah.
it kind of looks like in the history of my career, sort of like, oh, like Frozen happened, and then I didn't
Yeah.
go with Moulin Rouge. But the truth was that I had to kind of gamble and say, hey, I'm gonna see what happens. And then actually, I got a call. I had another job this spring, but they did call me to see if I'd come in and 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 do my part on Moulin Rouge. This like in April or whatever, and I couldn't do it. But I was actually really excited because I wasn't doing anything. I loved the show, and I was like, oh my, like yeah, like this would have been great. But I had another gig at the time, so
Yeah. Oh, life
happens.
must
But
be so hard. You had another job.
well, it wasn't even that glamorous. It
Oh,
was a production job. I have a production company with Dan, my buddy, and we were doing some video work, and we had this whole thing together to shoot this big video campaign. And I was like, I can't really walk off the job.
yeah.
I got to do this thing that you
Yeah.
know,
You never know. It could come back around.
I'd love it. I'd love it to
Yeah.
get to
Putting
like
it
sing
out there
those
in the
songs.
Alex Timbers, if you are magically listening to this podcast,
Yeah,
things available.
exactly. Exactly. Derek Klin has just didn't he just have a kid or he's having a kid? Like give me a call. I'm
I
around.
saw it, I think 2 weeks ago. I somehow magically won the Lucky Seat Lotto.
Oh,
So
in the front, in the
no, I actually didn't have bad seats. I was like front mezzanine, like very last row of the front, like all the way on the
oh, cool.
side. So quicker
Nice.
to the bathroom. But I've seen the show many times at this point. I just really love it. And what I like about Alex Timbers is that he not only, you have the stage, but he makes the entire theater a part of the show.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's right. Sadly, sorry.
My agent said when he saw it, he was like, it's like one of the pillars of drama.
Mm,
Like one of them is spectacle. It's like
yeah,
something like some Aristotle thing or something that like it's a spectacle, truly. Like it
yeah,
is just an over the top, like you are immersed in
yeah,
that Derek McClain set and everything else. It's just
yeah.
incredible. So
Well, he also made it that way for, I don't know who did the set for it, but Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson,
yeah,
the whole theater, and Beetlejuice as well. I haven't seen
totally.
Nurse Anarchy, but our BFF Andrew Cober's in it.
We went to go see it. We went to see it
Nice.
because we didn't see it. My wife and I, Kober and Alex did Les Mis together. Um, and so we went to go see it, and he was on in one of his tracks. And then Alex Brightman is also a good friend of mine, and so it was good to see. It's incredible what they've done with that theater. Yeah, you're just immersed. You're just a
Yeah.
part of it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk briefly about your TV work. I will say when I used to watch New Amsterdam, it was very nice to like see somebody like I know pop up.
Oh,
And that storyline, I kind of knew it was coming, but I didn't know exactly per se what was coming with that storyline that you
oh
had.
my God, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just fully insane. Here, okay, we're gonna talk about New Amsterdam. I'm gonna go see if my wife wouldn't mind teaching uh in the other
I'm
room.
gonna pause the
So
recording.
cool. So let me just ask her if she can teach out there, and then we can keep chatting for a little
Yeah,
while.
I'm gonna
Okay,
pause.
we're good.
And we're back. So
We're
New Amsterdam,
yeah, great.
where we left off.
Yeah, one of the the stranger, one of the stranger guest stars I've ever done
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, let's talk about it. So, and I mean, you're getting a lot more television credit, and we'll also talk about 5 days at Memorial. we'll get to that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Um, I haven't watched it yet. It started, right? Like on Friday?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
last week they
Oh,
released the
yeah.
first three last week,
Hmm.
and then there's a fourth episode that just came out yesterday, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
So
We'll
yeah,
get
we
there.
talked about that. Yeah, 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 cool.
But I don't want to like jump ahead
I
because I
know.
always talk about like your surprise appearance on Maisel. Because I always like when I see shows that I like, and I was like, oh my God, I know that person.
Right, right,
Even though
right.
like it's funny, like I know you, but like we've never met in person. Only.
No, I mean that's one of those things about this. We didn't even talk about like how we know each other. Really,
Mhm.
or I don't know if you do that with guests, but just like I mean,
Well, I will say, I mentioned it a lot, and then I had somebody who I did a reading with 2 years ago come on the podcast, and then I kept bringing up, oh, I did these readings, and they're like, oh, you did readings, and I just got like so embarrassed, and they were
mm,
apologetic about it because they were joking, but I'm like,
right.
I'm going to tame myself with
I
how
love it.
I say how I know all these people.
Well, we did a very cool reading
Yeah,
together,
well,
and
we
we
did
got
a reading of Red Light Winter, and it was
yes,
awesome, and it
yeah,
was a really great reading.
yeah,
And we got Adam Rapp to do the Q&A with us after, which was insane to
yeah.
me.
That was stupid. That
Yeah.
was incredibly stupid in a cool way.
Yeah, no, I specifically remember where I was in Central Park when he wrote back to me, I think on like Instagram or Facebook on one of the socials where he agreed to do it.
Yeah.
And I literally was jumping up and down like a lunatic. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm in Central Park. Who the fuck knows who I am?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy cool.
And that's
Crazy cool.
also like another thing that we always had, which was casting last minute.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have a Davis until like 3 days before the reading happened.
Yeah, that makes sense. That sounds like everything though, you know.
Yeah.
You know. I always love being like when I get a casting, when I get a breakdown or an audition that says
Mhm.
like, immediate replacement or like starts work next week, starts work
Yeah.
tomorrow. It's like, oh, awesome. Like they're desperate. And if they're desperate, they're going to be more likely to cast me
Yeah.
because there are less people who like, anyway,
Yeah. Well, no,
stupid.
I just find it really funny too because, it got to the point where I'm like, we're gonna find the right person. Cause I always said like we always are meant to get who we are meant to get, even if it's like last minute. And everyone's like, these actors aren't doing anything. It's a pandemic. Why aren't they saying yes? I'm like, we will get somebody. Like it'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
No,
not
totally.
worried about it. And like
Totally.
the short amount of time we had, we put on a really great reading.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah,
also
truly.
think it helps that the script was really great too,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
and very descriptive stage directions.
Mm,
Yeah,
massively. Yeah.
yeah. There was one Labute show we were going to do. It didn't work out, but there's like a stage direction in there that I still to this day like laugh about because I'll tell you off air about it, but off air, off podcast,
Amazing.
because
Amazing.
it's a new work, not to like spoil anything, but it was
Oh,
so great.
chef's kiss. Great.
Yeah.
I
It
love it.
wasn't the one that you were offered, but it's fine. One day maybe you'll do it. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm not saying no.
I emailed Neil Labute this morning and he wrote back to me, so you never know.
That's very cool. Isn't it crazy? Like when you email people like that and they respond.
It's mostly like it stems back from like for me with college. Like if you told me like over 10 years later that I would have a working relationship with Neil Labute, like I'd be like, you're funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
so the storyline on New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
I told
great.
you to get off track. Yeah, so you and your fiance did like a 23andMe, and then you found out that you were brother and sister through a sperm donor or something.
Yes. Yes, that's it. And
Yeah.
so that was the guest star and we went into the office of the like the counselor
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to like work it out or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently it came from the writer read about it. He sent me the article basically that it was true like loosely based on a true story that like
Oh,
this is a thing that with 23andMe and these genetic testing things that like people are realizing that they have relatives in places they didn't have blah 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 but that actually people in small towns or are actually related and it's kind of weird but
yeah.
you don't realize it it's not like anyway so it was bizarre it was a bizarre like ethical
Yeah.
episode and it really did end on like a what are they going to do? I don't know what they're going to do.
Well, because I distinctly remember it because again, it's like somebody I worked with was in something and he said like, you guys, if you want to be together, you can be together. You just can't have kids. That was pretty
Right.
much what he said.
Yeah. That was kind of how he's like, you can't have kids, but you guys need to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super weird. Um, but I mean, honestly, for me, like it's kind of macro that like going to work on a television show in New York City, period,
Hmm.
is the coolest thing.
Hmm.
And so kind of when any of them call, like when you get an audition for any of these, and now I've been fortunate enough to do a few, um, it's like, oh, great. Like I'm going in for New Amsterdam. Like you don't really get to choose,
Yeah. Have you done
like
SVU yet? I don't think you
I
have.
haven't, I haven't done Law and Order. I just had honestly my second audition ever for Law and Order, like a couple of weeks ago. The last one I went in, I had one audition a number of years ago, but I haven't really even auditioned for it very much, like for, whatever reason. So very much available.
Yeah.
Jonathan Strauss, if you're a listener, if you're a
Well, I
listener,
just
Phil
remember,
Hoffman.
yeah, for years, Chris Sieber in his bio had Mr. Sieber has never
He's ne
appeared on Law and Order, and then
Was
he was
that who
on
that
it.
was?
Yeah,
Like, because I remember reading it like in the spam a lot,
yeah, it was Chris Sieber.
playbill like a long time. That's
Yeah,
so funny. That's so funny.
and then he finally made an appearance on SVU,
Did he
and
really?
yeah, and it no longer says that. And I think it was like one year at the Tonys where Danny Burstein was nominated, and they were talking about like all of the performers on it who were on SVU, and they kept showing Danny Burstein.
Like six times, like the
Yeah,
six different episodes of the,
yeah,
because that was the Hamilton year.
yeah.
Because all of them had done
Hmm.
SVU or had
Yeah.
done Law and Order in some way like that season,
Hmm.
and then it was just like Danny Burstein over the years, and they went all
Yeah.
the way back to like like the early '90s and late,
Yeah.
it was so cool. That's so
I
cool.
remember that was the year of also Fiddler because a lot of people thought Danny was going to win because the Hamilton people were going to split the vote, but then Leslie won.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
drama.
It's fine. Danny eventually won his Tony and I cried because I love him
Yeah,
dearly. Dearly.
he's one of the best. Like,
Yeah.
getting to work with him on Moulin Rouge, just like, they say don't meet your heroes, but if you can meet and work with Danny Burstein, it's just the greatest. He's the greatest. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my phone is ringing. That's so embarrassing. Hold on.
It's fine. I
That's
like
so
your rug.
unprofessional.
It's
Oh yeah,
fine.
that's so unprofessional that the phone is ringing during the podcast. Come on, Joe. Is this your first outing? Um,
Who is it? Anybody exciting? You can pick it
Mhm.
up. I don't care.
No, it's my building. It's the super because our dishwasher doesn't work. Our dishwasher's broken. So I think they're calling about when they can come fix it, which would be great. That would be
Yeah.
great. So,
Yeah. I
um,
just put something in with my building the other day, like my bathtub is clogged, come fix it. And then they
mm,
just like called up, or like, can we come up? I'm like, yeah, sure.
yeah, that's it. So, um, yeah, what were we talking about? New Amsterdam,
Oh yeah, New
and Danny
Amsterdam, Danny
Ocean.
Burstein, Don't Meet Your Heroes, SVU, Law and
Yeah,
Order.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I
I mean,
haven't done any of this.
yeah,
Yeah.
I can just talk about Danny Burstein if you want. Let's talk. No, just joking.
No, I mean, I just love that man. He is so freaking good. Um,
I feel like you will not find a single person who will say anything bad about him.
No, I've yet to find, and like truly, like this is
Yeah.
not like a, you know, like a press talking point thing. Like truly, he's just like the greatest.
Yeah.
He's the greatest. So
Yeah. I don't know him personally. Like I've met him at like stage doors and stuff, but he's just I just want him to play my dad at some
yeah,
point in my life.
yeah,
That's just what I want. I don't ask for a lot.
yeah.
Just, Harry Styles to play medicine when I see him at Madison Square Garden, and
Mm-hmm.
for Danny Burstein to play my dad one day.
Yeah,
That's
these are
it.
good. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could do that. Yeah, you could do that. You could do
I
all
don't
that.
have control over either one, but it would be great. How did how did Maisel happen?
Similar, just another audition, but right smack that was in March of 21.
Hmm.
Very much still like, you know, on COVID lockdown, shows had started to creep back
Yeah.
in the fall of TV shows had started to creep back in the fall of 2020. Um, and then that was either the first or second time that I had auditioned for Maisel.
Hmm.
Um, and just sent in a self tape, no big deal. And then my wife and I did our first like little mini get out of our apartment thing over, we hadn't basically gone anywhere throughout, for all of 2020. And so we rented a Airbnb up in the Catskills, and I got a call back, a Zoom call back.
Mhm.
Had to drive back to the city, 2 hours to get a suit, and then drive. And then we decided to drive back out to this cabin, and I did the Zoom call back from this Airbnb cabin in the middle of the Catskills with like very mediocre Wi-Fi, in front of a window, so that like I had light or whatever. And yeah, and did it all over Zoom. I mean, that's still the world of the Zoom callback. That's still a thing
I
that
mean,
happens.
we're recording over Zoom right now,
We
so
are. We
yeah.
very much are.
Yeah, I used to, with my old apartment, it was bigger. And when I started my podcast, I would have people come over to my apartment. And then, the pandemic happened. And then I started up my podcast again. Zooming it is.
Zooming it is.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it.
I have a smaller apartment anyway. So I'm not going to
Yeah.
have like you schlep all the way down here to be like, come sit in my tiny studio apartment and record a
I know. Well,
podcast.
that's what we did. That's what Dan and I did when we had our podcast, because he was living in a studio apartment in Chelsea with his girlfriend, and
Mhm.
his girlfriend was working in an office. She had, quote, regular job, and she was working in an office, and so she'd leave, and so we would like use the apartment as our podcast like recording space, and like we had some very very fancy awesome people in this really tiny tiny studio.
Yeah.
um like Gavin Creel came to the studio and like sat on, I guess we did have a chair for him, but it's very low budget. Like, like, and he was
I
like so
honestly,
generous with his time.
I honestly, I don't think theater people care.
I don't either.
Yeah. And I just think they're just happy to do it.
Yeah, well, because like everybody's trying to make stuff. Everybody's grinding.
Yeah.
Everybody, the theater's a very small community, and we all just, want to support each other. And, whether it's doing a podcast or like, hey, I wrote this thing, will you do a reading of it? Like everybody's
Yeah.
like, yeah, 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 of course.
Yeah.
That's what we do. People are very generous that way. So
Yeah, I have this person, like I mentioned earlier before we started, like I have this person coming on in September, and I honestly cannot believe they said yes.
yeah,
And they're kind of a well-known, in more so in the UK, they're pretty known. So
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
can't. I just made a face. Nobody could have seen it except
No,
Jeff.
it's a big
But yeah,
face, big
it
face. Yeah,
was
that's
like
an awesome
a
face. Yeah.
mind blown.
See
Yeah.
what I love it though, that like you you sit around when I came out, you're like, hey, so just I got some bigger people than you
Yeah.
showing up in the next couple of weeks, guest wise.
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, I
Sorry.
appreciate that
No.
massively, and good for you.
Yeah. Well, no, it's
Um,
funny too, because I like posted something on Facebook the other day. I'm like, I have somebody really cool coming on in September. And I'm like, that's really cool, cruel because Joe is really wonderful. I don't want people to think that I'm like bashing you in any way.
you
But no,
can.
you're delightful and wonderful. And I'm so happy that you said yes to do this because
Oh my
if I
God,
had
yeah.
the opportunity to work with you as much as I can, I would.
No, I just I appreciate that, and likewise, and ditto. And but again, like you said, it's just, you know theater people, we will,
Yeah.
whether it's do your reading or sing at your benefit or
Mhm.
whatever, like that's just, with this what we do. So yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, and
And we
I
like talking about ourselves, sure. Like of course, just let me just sit here and talk about myself for an hour.
Well, that's why the
Ooh,
podcast go on for so long. I'm just joking.
right, right.
Well, no, people, listen, everybody, if they have the chance to talk about themselves and what they love doing, why the fuck not?
Yeah, it's like some people like it, some people hate it, but I don't
Right
mind it.
down. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about 5 days at Memorial. Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it is a new show on Apple TV Plus. Am I okay?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
has Academy Award nominated Vera Farmiga as the lead,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about, you want to tell the kids at home what's it about so I don't have to take it away from
Yeah. It is a very it's a comedy. No, it is one of the darkest stories I've ever certainly read. It's a true, okay. It's based on, the show is based on actual events.
hmm
And they've asked us to be clear about that, because it's based on a a book, a sort of the book 5 Days of Memorial, written by Sherry Fink, it was expand that book was expanded on a Peabody Award winning article, investigative journalistic article that she wrote about what happened at Memorial Hospital after Katrina. So it's about these doctors and patients and people in New Orleans after Katrina and the just complete chaos that ensued after the levees broke,
Mhm.
um, and life or death situations, and all of these things. Like, it's just it's an incredible story. Um, but it's hard, man. It's one that everybody, friends who are watching it are like, this is hard to watch, but people really need to know about this. Like, it's worth your time as a viewer, I think.
Mhm.
I hope that viewers feel that way, because it does leave you, like, for me, like, we watch it and then I have to like watch an episode of New Girl before I go to bed.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those. But it's an incredible kind of, who do you call
Mhm.
story, and I have a small part, I have a handful of scenes over the course of, I think I'm in 4 or 5 episodes now, the way that it was all cut together, of I play a business development executive who is kind of the only one, and I'm like an amalgam of many characters from the book and from the article, that I'm a character who works for the company that owns the hospital. So the doctors are like emailing the
Mhm.
corporate headquarters and saying, hey, we need help, we need help, we need help, and nobody was coming to rescue them. No one was helping. And this guy that I play, who is based on a handful of people, sort of compiled into one, uh, tries to help, tries to send some helicopters and tries to do what he can from a computer in Dallas, where the corporate headquarters of were headquartered anyway. That's a long rambling way to explain it. It's hard to talk about, because it's just so it's heavy. Basically, what you find out in the first 5 seconds of the show. So it's not giving anything away. It's literally in the opening, like before the credits even roll.
Mhm.
Investigators pull into Memorial Hospital after it's been evacuated, and there are 45 people dead, that were found in the hospital, like in the lobby, in the chapel. Um, and these investigators basically go like, "What the hell happened here?" And so it's basically trying to figure out, how did all of these people die,
Wow.
and what happened in the aftermath of the hurricane. And it's the 15-year anniversary of Katrina right now, this fall, and just so many things didn't work that should have worked.
Mhm.
And so, I hope that people watch it. I hope it's not too difficult, but sometimes art's supposed to be. That's a pretty pretentious thing to say, but but um, but I'm really proud of it. I think it turned out really, really incredibly, and I was so grateful to be a part of it. I had to quarantine in Canada. We shot it in Toronto. Had to quarantine in Canada for 2 weeks, so that was pretty wild.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's neat. I hope that people like it, because
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, it also sounds like a very important story that needs to be told.
Yeah, and it's while she is writing, I read the book um while I was quarantining, so it's a thick book. It's like a thick, book that it's hard to read, as it's hard to watch, but
Mhm.
this, she's an incredible investigative journalist, writes this book about all of the failings of what happened after Katrina, and then I get on set, and she's currently writing a book about the pandemic,
Mhm.
about COVID. And I was like, "Oh my God, it's the same story, basically." Like,
Mhm.
there's so many parallels
Yeah.
between what happened and what didn't happen, more than anything, what didn't happen,
Yeah.
you know? And hopefully the things that come to light from this story,
Yeah.
as they did from the book, like, a lot changed after the book was written and the article was written, and she exposed all of the failings that, of the system. A lot changed. Um, like for example, this might give away a little bit, but basically there was a whole issue in the story about the generators, right? So the water level's rising,
Yeah.
the levees, and a lot of people don't realize that what happened was the flooding was actually from Lake Pontchartrain.
Hmm.
So the way that New Orleans is settled, it's between all of these. It's below sea level, and between the Gulf of Mexico and then Lake Pontchartrain to the north, and that was what flooded. So the water actually broke the levees of Lake Pontchartrain in the north, and that's what flooded. And that's where a lot of this devastation took place. So the water level is rising. The generators, backup generators for these hospitals were in the basement. They're on like the first floor.
Yeah.
So I don't know anything about anything, but I know that like backup generators getting wet, not
Not good.
good.
Yeah.
So one of the things that changed after this, one of the main things that changed and around like Hurricane Sandy was that backup generators for basically all hospitals across the United States are moved to an upper level floor.
Yeah.
So even if you're not in New Orleans or
Hmm.
South Street Seaport, these generators have been moved because
Yeah.
that was a huge problem. And so things like that, and anyway, it's just crazy. So um, worth a watch, and I hope people like it. And then if you have to watch the Great British Baking Show before you go to bed,
Hmm.
I totally get it.
I told my therapist that she needs to watch British Bake Off because I was like the world needs British Bake Off and Queer Eye just to feel better about everything.
I watched both of those shows at least twice, all the way through both of every episode throughout the course of 2020 and 21.
Yeah.
Like those two, but yes, just
Yeah.
joy, love, happiness. We wake up every day and we read the New York Times, and that's important too. But
Yeah.
so is British people being nice to each other and making cakes.
Well, they're actually doing an American version of British Bake Off with Paul
Great.
Hollywood and Prue are the judges,
Good.
and Ellie Kemper and like some other person whose name I can't think of or think of their face right now are the host.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect.
So I just hope it's like, and it's because if you go on YouTube, you can see clips of like the celebrity stand up to cancer ones,
Hmm.
clips that they have of them. It's very funny because the
Yep.
celebrities are just like, I don't know how to bake, but here you go.
Great.
Yeah.
Perfect. I love that. I hope that we don't mess it up. Like, sometimes Americans can really mess stuff up, but
Well, I'm hoping that if it's like the same team behind British Bake Off, they'll find like the pure souls. They'll have like a granny from the Midwest and like someone from like Queens who you wouldn't think can bake but is really good.
right, right,
Um,
right. Let's check a lot of the different boxes. I hope so. I love it. I just want more of that. I just want the show to like I want them to do 2 or 3 seasons a year.
yeah,
But they're holding out on us. There's a new one coming. I've read, but it's
yeah,
not out yet. So
yeah. Well, Saturday I just binge watched the entire season of this British competition series on Netflix called Glow Up about makeup artists.
great,
They call
great.
them
I think I need
MUAs.
that. I
Oh,
think I need that.
yeah, and they have Instagram filters because that was one of their challenges. It's like become like do your makeup or like design a makeup that can also be a filter on Instagram.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I want that.
So now here we are. Do you prefer or what how do I phrase this? Because I'm trying to so you've done stage, you've done TV, you've done this, you've done that. Is there a medium that you prefer performing in?
Um, um, I don't necessarily prefer a medium. I prefer like it's hard like the I prefer the life stuff. I prefer the life of working on camera.
Hmm.
Meaning even if you're working 14 hours a day, you have your weekends off,
Yeah.
you get to like give it 110% and then you get to walk away from it and do
Mhm.
something different the next day. I am a person who gets bored very easily. So like my biggest struggle with doing 8 shows a week is just staying mentally sharp and fresh and
Mhm.
making every day like the first time you've ever done it. So that I like that stuff, but actually being in a scene with somebody on stage, I prefer. Like I wouldn't trade that. I wouldn't trade like singing on stage in front of people or being in a scene with somebody in
Mhm.
front of a live audience. Like you can't beat that. That's the greatest thing in the world. Like the end of For the first time in forever,
Mhm.
everybody comes down stage,
Hmm.
you know, Patty's hitting the high note, and there's a cast of 40 standing on the edge of the stage, and 2,000 people go crazy. Like that's just the greatest thing. Like you
Yeah.
can't beat that. You can't beat being in a scene with somebody. You can't beat being in a scene with Patty Murin.
Yeah.
Like
She's great.
she's iconic. But that being said, you know, that grind, that year long, year plus 8 show a week grind is tough. It's really hard. Um, so and you know, but yeah, that's kind of a non-answer. But
Yeah.
I get bored easily, so my answer is both. I want to keep doing both as much as possible, just more of it, frankly,
Or just virtual readings for one night
Right,
of
exactly. That's
Adam
what
Rapp plays.
yes,
That's
that's
it.
what I want. Yeah, that's what I
Just
want.
Adam Rapp plays, nothing else. Maybe
That's
a
what I want.
Labute. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Is there like any, this kind of goes into like the dream roles that I asked for you to have, but is there any person or playwright or composer or director or someone you haven't worked with that you would want to work with or do a show of theirs?
Mm, Playwright, composer. You asked me that question in email and I obviously didn't do my homework.
That's
Um,
fine.
you
Don't
know,
worry.
but I would love to work with Jason Robert Brown.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done one of his shows. Um, I would love to. I went to college. I know Benj Pasek personally. I know Benj and Justin just like as friends, like through
Mm-hmm.
just the business, but I've never worked with them.
Mm-hmm.
Had one of my greatest auditions, not like I did a good job, but just audition feelings. I auditioned for the original production of Dogfight,
Mm-hmm.
and I was 22 or 21, and I didn't know anything, and they kind of called me in from a video that they saw, and they were so kind, and the room was so joyful. And that was a million years ago, and I just, uh, but so something of theirs I would love to do. Um, I'm trying to think of like other people. Yeah, like film wise, TV wise, like J.J. Abrams or Vince Gilligan. I'm really deep into Better Call Saul right now as they finish up. I'm a season behind, but I'm catching up. That like I just love, you know. Oh, here's one.
Okay.
Um, uh, Coleman Domingo. Do you know Coleman Domingo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of my absolute favorite actors of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Also playwright. Passing Strange is my favorite musical. If you haven't seen the Spike Lee filming of Passing Strange, it is on. It used to be on Netflix, and now you can just rent it on iTunes. Um, Unbelievable. It's my favorite theatrical piece period, and he's unbelievable in it. I would love to just be in a room with him. I would love to just like. I don't think I'd be able to handle it,
Yeah.
because like people get like starstruck, like oh my gosh, you
I
know,
cried both times I met Laura Linney. I get it.
yeah. Like exactly. You just you can't you don't know when it's going to happen. And I don't really get starstruck. Like I got starstruck when I met Glenn Hansard.
Yeah.
A lot of people he could walk down the street, people don't know who he is.
Yeah.
He's one of but I met him and
Also
I couldn't speak.
incredible live. Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Um, but I got starstruck then. I've met a lot of cool people and I don't really get very starstruck, but I feel like if I were to meet him, I would not be able to contain myself because the opening of Act Two of Passing Strange, he does this performance art piece, and I still think about that on a daily basis. So he also writes. So like if he were to
Hmm.
come up with anything, um,
Hmm.
so that's a pretty good list, right?
Yeah. So I guess that's a good segue into your top going theater experiences. So Passing
Yeah.
Strange is one of them.
Which I actually never saw live. I only saw the video.
I will fully admit I haven't seen either. I know.
Yeah. So, um, I was in London. We were studying at RADA, and uh, it was a time like I was in college, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to do this for my life. It's really hard. Blah 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 blah. I was kind of like in a down sort of era, early coming out of this musical theater grind and then studying abroad or whatever. And my friend Matt Wood said to me, "Have you seen?" Because he goes to NYU and he gets to see everything, and I'm at Michigan. He's like, "Have you seen Passing Strange?" No. So we sat up, we turned it on at like midnight,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like 2:30 in the morning or something. We finished
Mm-hmm.
watching this thing, and it just completely changed my whole life of like what is possible
Yeah.
in theater. It is true storytelling, narrator focus. The guy who, Stu, who wrote it, it's semi-autobiographical. It's all about a kid and his mom and a kid's relationship with music and art and everything. And it just completely changed my life. And still, I listened to it on the subway the other night. Like I listened to the whole, I don't listen to a lot of show tunes, like
Mm-hmm.
just like on Spotify these days,
Yeah.
but sans like a Sondheim binge from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But I did just like I listen to that like once every 6 months, and I'll watch the video a couple times a year if I'm feeling like artistically stunted.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just turn that on. It makes me happy every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else other than Fast and Strange?
Watching once for
Hmm.
sure. We already nerded out about that, but
We can
being
we can continually nerd out about once
yeah,
whenever. I'm here for it.
but like being in the audience of
Hmm.
that show
You saw
and
the original cast, right?
yeah, saw the whole original cast.
I was going to say earlier, I actually did see your friend Ben Hope go on for Guy. Because I think that's like when Steve Kazee hurt his throat or
Uh-huh.
vocals or whatever.
Yeah.
That's when I saw him go on.
Yeah. Just the coolest thing. Yeah, just being in the audience for that. Absolutely life-changing. Being going to see Sleep No More was pretty
Mhm.
life-changing right after they opened. I saw that right after it opened and I was just like, what is this?
Yeah.
Um, the revival of Sunday in the Park with George,
Which one?
Annalie Ashford,
Hmm.
just are you like she can do no wrong.
Yeah. She's rumored to be doing Sweeney Todd with Josh Groban.
I did. I heard about that, and I actually know one other piece of casting that I cannot talk about, like truly sworn to secrecy. There are three offers that have been made, apparently. Rumor has it,
Mm.
and
I'm sure it'll
and
end up being on the Broadway World
oh,
Board, and then
I
Dumois will pick it up.
I'm so excited for that because
It's
she's
actually,
going to be amazing. But I'm not. No, I'm not. It's not me. But
imagine if it was you and you would be like, haha.
right, just like that'd be some really good Hollywood Broadway,
Yeah.
behind the scenesery,
Yeah.
like
I don't
Joe
know if
Carroll.
you follow Dumois on Instagram. It's
Mm-mm.
kind of like a Gossip Girl type thing where
Okay.
people like send in blinds. And my friends and I both follow it. And she's also like a huge theater nerd. And we're just like, it's really funny because like it's mentioned on the Broadway World Boards and then it ends up on Dumois. It's like, yeah.
Classic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the revival of Sunday. Did you see it at City Center?
No, I saw it when it transferred. Honestly, the Into the Woods, I saw that at City Center.
Hmm.
That was a core. That's going to be a core theatrical memory.
Yeah. Especially Milky
Unbelievable.
White.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I produced, I was a producer on James Ortiz, who did the puppetry,
Mm.
who invented Milky White.
Yeah.
He did a show a number of years ago called The Woodsman off Broadway, and I
Very
was a
familiar.
co-producer. I raised some money for that. That was my first time ever producing. One of the coolest experiences ever. He's incredible. If he's like the greatest Instagram follow ever, because every like when he gets bored, he'll just like build himself like the world's greatest Green Goblin costume that you've ever seen and just like post a bunch of pictures on Instagram. So just like check him out. The guy who he's incredible. Um what else though? Yeah, like I have a million of them,
Keep
like
going.
I saw Eartha Kitt in Cinderella on tour when I was like 10.
That's incredible.
I saw the original production, the out of town tryout of Aida, um, when I was 10 years old. So, and this is just a separate plug for our podcast. I have a pretty, not to toot my own horn, a pretty amazing story about the out of town tryout of Aida that I talked to Adam Pascal about on our podcast. So go check if you want to listen to that. That is Adam Pascal comes on the show. That was really fun.
Yeah.
What the hell else? Like, um,
Doing a reading of Red Light Winter.
doing a reading of Red Light Winter for
Yeah.
sure.
Just gonna keep
Um,
plugging that. It's not available anywhere.
until we
Cool.
revive it,
Oh my
until we
God.
like do an actual production of it.
Why not? I mean,
Yeah.
I would direct it.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
it.
Or
Yeah.
maybe like Adam should just put that cast in a movie.
Great.
He was
Let's do
talking
that.
about it, and I was saying to myself, like, just cast these people
Yeah.
right
Why
here.
not? Why not?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. What else? What are yours? Do you have any?
I have a lot. Once the History Boys, um, the Ferryman,
Mm-hmm. The Ferryman was incredible.
yeah, Brief Encounter.
Yeah. My
That
wife and I still quote from the Ferryman. So many quotable moments, but when the old, I feel like the little kids are sitting around, and the one little girl that we saw, they do like a prophecy and or
yeah.
whatever, and then the woman's like, "You're gonna have 9 kids," and the little girl goes, "9 kids, fuck me blue." I still like think about that line reading, and this like iconic
Yeah.
7-year-old, or
Yeah.
maybe she was like, I don't know, older, but
Oh, I was in London when it was on the West End, and I said to my friend, I'm like, it's coming to New York. I don't need to see this. And then I was kind of
mm,
like, man, I wish I saw it. But it was the same cast,
yeah,
the
yeah,
original. And a guy friend and I saw it, and I was like, oh, we were
yeah,
just freaking out about it. And then I ended up seeing it like a few weeks later in a much better seat. And
nice.
I still was like freaked out by the ending. Not a bad way, but just like I knew it was coming, but it was
Right, right,
very,
right.
and I'm working on my terrible, terrible Irish accent to one day play Caitlin Carney. One day.
Perfect,
Yeah.
perfect, absolutely.
Trying to think of what else. It really next fall when I saw it on Broadway, it was great.
Missed that.
Then Danny Burstein and Beth Level and Drowsy Chaperone
Yep.
and Leah Schreiber and Talk Radio.
Mm,
Because I saw it when I was in college, and I just remember specifically saying to myself, oh, so that's what acting is
yeah,
when I was in college.
yeah.
And I'm sure I'm trying to think of like other things, but I can't think of them. But I already told you my once thing. And
It's so fun to just nerd out about once. Like that's just,
yeah,
I'm so glad you brought that up and that you have like a shared affinity for that because that's so fun for me.
yeah, no, I just, my old job was working as a hotel concierge, and everybody knew I was like the theater nerd of the company.
Right.
People were like, oh, once it's so boring. I was like, just stop. Because,
Yeah.
everybody feels a certain way. Like, there are some shows that I am not a huge fan of,
Sure.
but, for me, I loved ones, and people are like, how could you like it? It's this, it's this. I'm like, you can like In the Heights. I don't have to like In the Heights,
Yeah, exactly. You can,
you know?
there's theater for everybody. There's theater
Exactly.
for
And that's
everybody.
what
Yeah.
and I pride myself on being really good at like picking out, not so much anymore, but like that job, I was very good at picking out shows for people. And they're like,
Mm,
but the reviews, I'm like, the reviews are going to say whatever they're going to say. Trust me, you will like the show. And I say,
right.
just because I am not a fan of the show doesn't mean that you're not going to like it. Because
Right.
then you'd be like, what do you think of the show? And I'd be like, I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah.
I would like straight up tell them. And then I would say, but
But I think that
yeah.
yeah, if you have never seen, I mean, there's, yeah, totally. I'm with you.
Trying to think what now I'm like actually thinking about what are other theater experiences I enjoyed so much. Yeah, that's it for now.
I
I mean,
love
I
it.
also did go to the anniversary concert of Light in the Piazza,
Yeah.
which is my favorite musical. And whenever I just need to have a good cry, I'll put on the overture of Light in the Piazza and I'll just
Perfect.
cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That's some good theater nerd shit right there.
Yeah. And the entire second act, I was crying and I was walking home. And I overheard some guy on the phone saying, yeah, I have a subscription because, to Lincoln Center. And they have these tickets to this thing. And I went there tonight. Everybody around me was crying.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Oh, man. Do you have any dream roles?
Um, you know, probably.
Mhm.
Um, but the cop out answer is like stuff that hasn't been written yet.
I just
I,
want to say
you
that
know,
you're not the only person to have said that, and you won't be the last. And
yeah,
I,
I
whatever.
think I think I'm in an era where like, sure I have dream roles, like, George and Sunday and Bridges of Madison County and like, there are so many things that I want to do, but I think that like in theater school and when you're coming up, so often you are put in revivals. Like I feel like I know how to audition for revivals
Mm-hmm.
I have a BFA in musical theater that is kind of a BFA in stuff that's already been written,
Yeah.
right? I can go to Lincoln Center and I can watch Patrick Wilson and the Full Monty, and then I can go audition for the Full Monty with an idea of what was created.
Yeah.
I still am trying to figure out what it's like to originate stuff,
Yeah.
what it's like to actually come in and have a creative team be like, I want Joe, you know, to do this thing the way that they want Danny Burstein to do it. I just want to be Danny Burstein when I grow up. And
Who doesn't?
he said, I know we just talked about it. This is like the Danny Burstein Stan podcast. He said during Moulin Rouge, my only goal was to have the respect of my peers
Mm-hmm.
in my career was one of the things that he said. And that is the most true. He accomplished that. He
Yeah.
so has the respect of his peers, his, creators and, collaborators. And that's what I want to do. And so, yeah,
I would
like,
say though,
yeah,
you have been lucky enough to kind of have moments in your career like that, because even though you were going into roles that were already created, like once it was an original musical, even though it was quote unquote jukebox, and you got to create for Bandstand.
I did get to create for Bandstand for sure. I mean, I had the luxury of like watching Will Connolly in once and just being like, okay, I'm going to do, you know, my version of what I think this guy is that Will Connolly created. I'm going to do
Yeah.
my version of what David Avalos created. I'm going to do my version of what Santino Fontana
Mhm.
created. With Bandstand, it was like it was it was as close as I've gotten. I want more experiences like that. But I do know that a huge reason I got cast in that show was that I could play the drums.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's great. That's who I am. I am
Hmm.
a drummer. I'm a musician as much as I'm anything else. But you know, I don't know. I just want people to continue to be like, oh yeah, like I think Joe could do something with this
Yeah.
that is not on the page. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the answer to that. And then just more Shakespeare. I just want to do more plays. I want to do more Shakespeare. And, I haven't gotten to do any since Romeo and Juliet. But maybe they're not going anywhere. Like you said, I can just go to the park and do like,
Yeah.
just I could just
Mhm.
I don't have to pay anybody for the royalties. So
I will also say you do have a production company,
yeah.
so you can just start making Shakespeare videos.
Huh.
Just saying. And you know, plenty
That's a
of
good idea.
performers.
This is a very good idea. This is not no, okay. All right. See, now that you're like calling me out, like we come to the end of this. Now I'm gonna have to go like do work. I'm gonna have to go make stuff. I don't
There-
want to do anything.
I think you already I or whomever is listening, I'm a pretty creative person and I don't create as much as I would like to because it's just long story that's for not on a podcast. Um I'm very good at coming up with ideas for people to do things and be creative in their own ways.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. All right, I'll go make some Shakespeare videos.
perfect. And then like if you ever need help with any of them, I'm not really great at Shakespeare, but I do have the mugs. I do have a huge Shakespeare textbook though that I had to get in college. And I did a monologue from As You Like It for like our final that semester and the professor's like, "Are you a performance whore?" Because apparently I was great with the monologue. So just
Amazing.
yeah. It also had like some really good lines in it that my friends were jealous of that I got to say, like your bugle eyeballs, your cheek of
Mm,
cream.
good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have it on my phone. I sometimes will just like sit in my apartment and read it out loud, pretending like I can do Shakespeare.
Perfect.
So now we're coming to one of the best parts of the podcast, the inside the actor studio questions.
Great.
So are you ready? Are you excited?
Perfect.
Did
I'm
you know
so
this was coming?
I didn't. I didn't.
Well, you're welcome.
Hit
Okay.
hit me with it.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word.
Mhm.
That's different than the favorite swear word, right? Because that's coming.
Yes, that is good. But if your favorite word is a curse word, you can say that too.
Yeah. I think my favorite word is brilliant. I think my favorite word is brilliant.
Least favorite word.
God, I don't know. My least favorite word. I can't. Oh my God. Focus, Joe. My least favorite word. Hmm. It's not security deposit. That's two words.
We can make it one. It can be a compound word in this moment.
Great.
What turns you on?
Red wine.
What turns you off? White wine?
Be
Just
being yeah, white wine being too hot. Being I like I want to live in 65-degree weather at all times and drink red wine.
that's the dream. I was walking around yesterday sweating so much because it
Yeah.
was so much warmer than I thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
and I didn't appreciate it. What now? What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
Mhm. It's a great one. It's used so many ways.
It's like it's just since moving to New York, my language has gotten absolutely horrifying. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
I am who I am.
We were cussing plenty before we started recording. What sound or noise do you love?
What sound or noise do I love?
Other than the passing strange cast recording.
Oh my God, I do love that. Uh, the tuning of a guitar. I love.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Uh, feedback in a monitor when you're like sound checking or yeah, really like somebody fucked up and now there's like that really horrible white noise that like just burns your eardrums for a second. That just makes me fucking crazy.
What profession other than yours would you like to attempt? No, wait, I take that back. I said it wrong. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt? Yeah, I said it right.
Yeah.
There it is.
Um I'm quitting I quit being an actor like every probably 3 to 6 hours. I actively I'm like, okay, well, I need, what else am I going to do with my life that is more stable, more financially, blah blah blah, whatever. So I've thought about this question a lot, and I guess and I still don't really know.
Mhm.
Because I'm here. I've tried a lot of things. I've gone down the path toward a lot of things. Um, but I do think like this is kind of heady, but I think that if I were to be doing something else, it would probably be something to do with law and something to do with helping people. Like I just think that like Amal Clooney is like the most incredible person on the planet to be like, a humanitarian,
Mhm.
a lawyer, truly helping people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, either that or like, I would love in theory to be like, if you were to ask me like, what do I want to be when I grow up? Like to be a showrunner
Mhm.
would just be like, I feel like the dream come true to be able to sit and just like make stuff happen, sort of be the boss of
Mhm.
do what Vince Gilligan does or what JJ Abrams does or
Yeah.
what Carlton Cuse does. I mean, working with Carlton on 5 Days of Memorial, he's like, yeah, I've been show running since I was 30 years old. Like that's all I've ever known. And it's just, it feels so full. It feels like such a full creative experience,
Mhm.
maybe. So something like that.
So, what you're going to do with your production company is you're going to take a Shakespeare show, turn it into a TV show, and you're going to be its showrunner.
Great.
Um,
Thank
More
you.
royalties. What profession would you not like to do?
What profession would I not like to do?
Yeah.
Um, I would not like to be a elementary or high school teacher. I think that they are saints and they should all be paid $1 million a year.
Hmm.
Every single public school teacher on the planet. But
Hmm.
I don't want to do that.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Mm. Mm. Um, I struggle a lot with like doing enough, feeling like I'm doing enough.
Hmm.
So I feel like if he said something, or she, most likely she,
Or they.
say, or they said something along the lines of like, you did enough.
Hmm.
You did everything you could do.
Hmm.
Something like that. You know, or like, like the bar's this way, something like that. Like,
It could be a combination of both. It's like
yeah,
you did everything you needed to.
yeah,
Now there's the bar
yeah.
open in the back. Go
Yeah,
get a
the bar is there,
Yeah. Or it just like that'll do, pig. That'll
Yeah, truly, like that's kind of what I feel like we're all
yeah.
looking for as artists, is just
Some validation.
somebody to say to you like you're on the right track, or you're doing it, So yeah.
Mhm. And as Mr. Lipton would say, now these are your students. And then, the Q&A would happen with the MFA students. Quickly though, because again, I did a deep dive into your Instagram as well. You're also teaching.
Yeah, and I've taught ever since I've moved here. I have professional students. My professional clients are mostly TV and film
Hmm.
actor, people auditioning for TV shows and movies. And I help sort of specializing with, theater actors making the transition to,
Hmm.
making the jump to screen. And then I work for a company called MTCA, Musical Theater College Auditions, which helps high school kids who want to apply to university musical theater and acting programs pick rep and work on acting through song and stuff like that. So yeah, I've been doing that for, gosh, 10 years.
Yeah. You
And
also
like,
on, sorry, go ahead.
no, but like, but in between jobs and stuff, like when there's not a lot of like work, it's the main way that, like, my wife and I, she works for them too, like, pay our rent and stuff. But then otherwise we just love doing it. It's kind of like a giving back,
Mhm.
and as well as something we really enjoy.
Yeah. Can you also be found on Broadway Plus?
I
And
can.
yes,
I can.
that's how I met Adam Pascal, was through Broadway Plus, because my sister got me a gift certificate and was like, use it to get people on your podcast. Like,
Oh my God,
I don't think that's
amazing.
gonna happen, but she's like, you can't use it for like a voice lesson. It was like, I'm not going to sing in front of them.
That's so funny. Yeah, I just looked this up actually, now that I'm talking to you. I am on Broadway Plus. It's been yeah, so you can look me up, I guess.
Is Broadway Plus still as popular now that the pandemic? I mean, it's still happening, but it's not what it was.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I still think I have money on my gift card, and I'm like, who do I want to virtually meet
Yeah.
that I haven't virtually met already from working with them on a reading?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, David Albees is actually on my list of people. Although I did meet him at the stage door of Harry Potter, and I kind of like geeked out. I'm like, I saw you in Once, I saw you in Great Comet, and you're in this. And he was kind of like, oh my God, I have a fan.
Yeah.
It was pretty
When
great.
he's such a
Yeah.
like, working steady
Hmm.
actor, family man,
Yeah.
working actor, like he's not a you know, I'm sure he appreciate that. I love David. He's the greatest.
Yeah.
He's such a great guy.
Yeah. And I was like, you probably understudy Ron. He's like, I do. He's like, you'll have to see me when I'm on. I'm like, you'll have to let me know. And now he's playing Ron Weasley on Broadway. And I saw it and it was wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, final things. What am I saying? I don't know anymore. I'm also very tired, so I apologize.
I love it. I love it.
Great.
We're good.
Welcome to, should we talk about once more before I figure out what I was going to what I was going to ask you? So, we're like, what do you want to do more of? Do you want to do more stage? I mean, I know we talked about it a little bit, but where do you foresee yourself in the next however long? What do you want to do more of?
I
What
think
do you
I'd
see
like,
your future
yeah.
holding
I
besides
I'm
becoming a showrunner on your
uh,
Shakespeare
of my Shakespeare show.
on YouTube? Because I don't know where else.
Yeah, I kind of just, just like more of it, honestly. I'm excited for the world to continue to do what it does, like to continue to open a little bit, like I think that the Broadway community is still figuring out
Mhm.
kind of how to live right now, how to exist. And so I'm excited for this season. I'm excited for the stuff that's happening and for like, because we really just like this past year had the Broadway season of 2020. It
Yeah.
felt like, like with company and everything, just like, you know, so okay, great. Everybody was able to do that. Matt Doyle is one of my dearest friends, and he was, been doing this for 4 years, it feels like. And now like I get to actually do the thing. So um yeah, just more of it. I'd let more, I'd love to be a regular on a show. I'd love to do a show in New York, like,
Mhm.
to be able to recur, be a regular on a show at home at home.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of it.
Yeah. And lastly, why
Mm.
do you think theater is important?
Um, I think that it is a community in its truest definition because it's a place for people to feel connected and to feel a part of something from an audience and from a viewer, the viewing and audience standpoint, and for the people on stage doing it.
Hmm.
Like we're all a part of this thing,
Hmm.
and we as humans want community, and we want connection.
Yeah.
And so yes, it can change minds and hearts, and it can make you think about things. And like Danny Burstein's article in the New York Times about like, you know, I learned about life through theater. And it's like, that is so true. And I feel the same way. But also, I just feel like it's community. You sit down next to somebody and, you guys are going to watch some show together. And that is, you guys are in it together. And I think that that's the most special and most important part of it, and why it will continue, you know? So, yeah, I don't know if that's particularly profound, but that's it.
That's
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 all I got.
that's your feeling and that's your take.
That's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Well, anything else you'd like to add? Questions, problems, concerns, life advice needed or wanting to give?
Always life advice. But that's it.
Yeah.
That's it for me. I think,
We're here. We're
it's just almost happy hour. So,
yeah,
um,
red wine is calling you somewhere.
that's it.
Yeah. So if
Uh,
you're ever back on Broadway, you want to send Joe something, just is there a particular type of red you like?
oh my gosh, just brown liquor or red wine,
Yeah.
and I'd be your best friend forever.
Maybe like a nice
I like,
Rioja.
I like, yes, because I'm Spanish. What does he say? Rioja, because he's Spanish, right?
My Spanish ancestors.
Spanish ancestors.
See, I can quote that more than I can the ferryman, but
Yeah.
yeah, my Spanish ancestors.
Yeah. This is from once, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Again, we're
Yeah.
just geeking out over it. Maybe we should just have another podcast where we just talk about everything once.
Yeah. Just break it down scene by scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got. So, Allison,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you. You can stay on once I stop recording, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And if you want to work with Joe, reach out and listen to his podcast with Dan Tracy, wherever podcasts are found. And thanks for listening, y'all. Bye.
Bye.